Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association, presented to you by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. I hope everyone's having a great day. We have a wonderful show ahead today. We have Isabel Rafferty Zavala with us to talk about leadership, fundraising, faith and finance, and her very exciting media company. Isabel, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very happy to be here today.
Can we please start with a prayer? In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Our Lady Guadalupe, pray for us.
Pray for us.
So let's introduce Isabel, our guest today. Isabel Rafferty Zavala is a digital marketing pioneer. She is the founder and CEO of Canela Media, a leading digital media tech company that gives brands the tools they need to effectively connect with multicultural audiences through multiple touchpoints, including its free-to-stream platform, Canela.tv, influencer marketing, branded content, and more than 180 exclusive Spanish-language sites. Prior to starting Canela Media, Rafferty Zavala founded Movias, a company dedicated to reaching U.S. Hispanic and African American audiences via mobile advertising. Under Rafferty Zavala's leadership, Movias quickly became the largest Hispanic-focused ad network as ranked by ComScore before being acquired by PRISA in 2017. And you know, Isabel, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but Canela is just on a roll right now. I mean, your company is not even 3 years since its founding. You just wrapped up this really historic $32 million fundraising effort, and really the sky is the limit. And I can't wait to explore that with you and a bunch of other great topics today. Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you.
So Isabel, tell us a little bit about yourself, you know, where you grew up, you know, your family life, anything about your background you'd like to share with our audience so they can help get to know you a little bit better.
As you can tell by my heavy accent, I was born in Mexico City. My parents were entrepreneurs. They had a business that was growing very rapidly in the US. So when I was 15, we moved to beautiful San Diego, California, which was a great place to be raised as a Latina, because I was able to stay close to the Latin culture because you're next to Tijuana. You can hear radio in Spanish. So you can still be kind of attached to the beauty of the Latin culture, but also kind of being raised in the American culture at the same time, right? I did college in the US. I started my career in the US, but never forgetting where my roots were, where are those Latin roots. So being raised in San Diego, I got my opportunity. I started in media. Before we jump into the media, I think it's important to highlight where I wanted to go. Everybody thinks that, you know, when you're an executive or you go on a path of career, that you have a dream always to be that. I did not want it to be an executive. I did not want it to run a company. The other way around, I wanted to be a mom. When people ask me always growing up, what do you want to do? I want to be a mom. There's nothing more rewarding than children. I love kids. So my goal in life was just to be, not just to, because it's amazing, the motherhood. I wanted to be a mom. And I know with how culture is changing, there's a lack of elevation of moms, but that's what I wanted to be. That was my goal. But when I graduated college, I was not married. So I'm like, I'm not married. So how can I be a mom? So I better think about a plan B. Meanwhile, right, I get to my dream of being a mom. So I decided to go into business. I'm like, I'll do this meanwhile. And I love business, and it hooked me, and I realized I was good at it. And I started in media and in Hispanic media, because I'm like, where can I make a difference? I'm like, I'm a Latina, I love media. So let's focus in the audience that I love so much, on my people, and how I can elevate that Hispanic audience. So I work with some of the largest broadcasters coming out of college, Univision, Telemundo. But being young, I needed to find a place for myself, a place that I could thrive. And when I started to do broadcasts, I realized that people would look at me not very seriously. They're like, what does this young girl know about broadcasts? She just looks out of college. How can I take her seriously? So I saw a huge window of opportunity in digital media. And I realized not a lot of people had the expertise on it. So I dived down in understanding deeply how Hispanic audiences were connecting with technology, in particular to media. And that really drove me to dive very deeply in mobile advertising. Just when the iPhone was launching, so very early on, I saw huge trends of Latino leapfrog, like they were not utilizing as much desktop, so they're going directly to mobile, and they were adapting it even quicker. So that was my beginning of love for media, my beginning of being in the digital space, and my love for the Latino community. So
It's worth mentioning you did eventually fulfill your dream of becoming a mother, right? So
absolutely, I think that's something very important, and I like to say, I would not have been happy if I had not fulfilled that, because that's the most important thing in life, my kids. So I'm a mother of four. I have three beautiful boys and our girl, Isabel Guadalupe. So yeah, they are what drives me. So I think a lot of people think when we think about business, we think that you have to choose one path, right? And yes, it is difficult to be excellent, right? You cannot be the best mom in everything running a business, but you have to find the areas that make an impact that are important. So yes, maybe you're not going to do those beautiful cupcakes that some moms take to school that are homemade, and you're going to go to the grocery store at the middle of the night and buy whatever is available because you didn't have time. But you can give them that love to your kids, and that quality of, it's not a lot of time you have, but the quality of time, and you can balance, I think, the work life. So I see a lot of executive women, even in my own team, they're not having children. And I do want to say it's possible. If you really want it, it's possible. And it's going to make your work even more fulfilling.
yeah, you're proof of that. And I'm wondering, does your love of family, is it really deep in your roots, Isabel? Is it the way your parents raised you? Were they, you mentioned they were entrepreneurs and business people themselves. Was that how they lived too?
Yeah. My parents are entrepreneurs. My mom was a businesswoman, very successful. But she always had time for us. She always made, like, yeah, she was running businesses, but it was family came first. We always had dinner together. Everything was around family and around faith. So our faith has always been very important. Um, my parents are Catholic. My mom was the pillar for the faith in the house growing up. And my dad had a huge conversion. My mom, he was always Catholic, but not really devout Catholic. But he loved so much my mother that he agreed when they got married that he will go to mass with us and don't interfere with her teaching us faith. But he had the biggest conversion 5 years ago, and he's a daily mass goer now, multiple rosaries a day. So yeah, I think it's how we got raised, and then also who I marry. My husband is a fantastic Catholic from a beautiful family as well, Irish Catholic, where faith is in the center and family. So we both really knew what we wanted when we started our family, and is that raising a family with values.
That's beautiful. And Isabel, you touched a little bit about the challenge that some working people face, including working women, of being very aggressive and ambitious in their career, working their way up the ladder while having a family and raising children, doing all those things. Will you dive a little deeper on that? I mean, why do you think that presents such a challenge sometime? And what advice would you give to, say, a young professional woman that wants it all, wants to have a great career, and also wants to have children, fall in love, have a family, all the blessings that come along with that?
I think it's possible. It's not for everybody, but I think if you really want it and you're able to prioritize what's important in life, because it comes to a point of prioritizing, because you're not going to be able to do everything, but you have to just realize and be very careful how you prioritize your time. It's a lot of time. What we have is time. So finding someone that's supportive, I think as a working women, you need to have an amazing spouse. I think it's very difficult to be able to achieve it without that support. If not a spouse, someone that is supporting you, because if you're going to have children, it's a partnership at home as well. And without that partnership, like my husband is my rock. He picks up the kids. We divide and we conquer, and we know our weakness and our strengths. And also in business, we're co-founders, so we both work together and run the house together. And so I think it's impossible to do everything by yourself. So having a great support system is a must. But I think everything that you read out there makes you believe that you can't, that you have to choose a path. And I have met some of the most successful women. They have been able to achieve both because they really want both. So I think it's possible. I don't know if there's any specific advice. If it's in your heart, my parents always say, if you have a desire in your heart, it's because God put it there for you. So if you want to be a mom and you want to be a successful business person, you're going to find a way to do it because that's important for you. So there's not just go for it. Don't think about it too much and just go for it and you'll figure it out, I think.
Just go for it. Great advice. I love it. Isabel, you referenced your strong faith that, was given to you by your parents and your family and remains strong in your life. I'm curious, as you've been a professional and a CEO and a founder of a multi-million-dollar company, balancing that with family life, et cetera, and just going through all the ups and downs that entrepreneurship entails, right? I mean, there's really good days and then there's not so good days, more challenging days, right? Would you just comment real quick on how your faith has been a support to you through all that adventure, all the good and all the bad? Would you say that your strong faith has made you more resilient and having more fortitude to deal with the many challenges that go along with your lifestyle?
Yeah, I think so, because when you realize that there's things out of your control and you put them in God's hands and you're like, I cannot control everything. And there's a lot of stressful moments launching a business. And we put everything in the line when we launch this business. We put a second mortgage in our house. There was a lot of unknowns. COVID started when we launched our first product. And we didn't know if we were going to make it. So at some point you realize, right, that not everything is under your control and you have to put it in God's hands and you have to trust his plan. So in Latino says, a Dios rogando, pero con el mazo dando. You'll do your best. You're going to do your hardest job, but it comes to a point that you just have to say, God, you know better than me. And if this is not meant to be, if this business is not supposed to thrive, I'm okay with it because I did everything I was supposed to and I can be in peace. So I think just resting in God that gives you that peace is very important, because the stress of running a business, it can be very high. And I think without that faith to let us know that if we were supposed to fail, it was okay because we did our best and it was maybe not the best path for us as a family. It makes every decision, I think, it makes it, you can, without that, I don't know how people do it. So yes, faith is key even in business. Every decision is impacted by it.
So Isabel, you get out of college. I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but you go into sales roles in media, right? You become a salesperson, a successful one. Moving on up, serving people well, performing at a high level professionally. Was this around the time where you really discovered the untapped potential of the American Hispanic market and how to serve that constituency specifically? Was this kind of when you discovered that?
Yeah, I was very fortunate when I started my career is when digital was exploding. And a lot of traditional media companies didn't know how to go at it. And there was not the expertise in-house. So one of the first opportunities that I had the chance to dive into technology and the need for it was I was working in a newspaper, and they had just closed a partnership at that time with Yahoo. And it was, and they received these huge boxes with binders on information on technology and how to integrate it. And I'm always a very hungry and nerd. I like to say, I like to know I'm curious mind. I want to learn everything I can learn. So I took the binders home because nobody had the time. And I stood up until 2 a.m. reading the binders, understanding how to integrate it, what it meant, what was advertising, what was digital. And I fell in love. I'm like, this is the future. this is gonna change the way media gets consumed. I saw it very clearly there. And I just kept that knowledge in my head. And when I moved into the TV stations for the Latino audiences, I wanted to experiment on it. And it's a weird situation because usually there's so many layers to make any changes within a large corporation. But because digital was new to most of these large media corporates, it kind of worked as a startup within the organization. So I approached the general manager of, at that time, Univision San Diego, and I told him I want to launch a digital product for the company. They laughed a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, they didn't take me that seriously. I waited for a little longer, and 6 months later, I approached him because they knew they had the pressure. And I'm like, you don't have anything to lose. I told them, you don't have to raise my salary. If you don't, you can test me. Like, let me do this. And they're like, well, sure, what's gonna be the hurt? Let's let Isabel try her digital thing and let's see if it works. 6 months in, it became extremely successful for the stations. And now for the 40 stations that they own across the US, we became the top billing. And they're like, no, there's something here. This digital advertising is going to explode. So they promoted me to manager very young. I was, I think, 21. I started hiring teams underneath me. And I started experimenting. Again, going to a career style, I'm like, okay, what if I do advertising in the computer? What if I play a little bit with text messaging mobile? And how do I connect that with TV? And I start seeing Latinos answer on their mobile devices at a rate that it was incredible. And I'm like, there's something here. And that's what I started to say, okay, I need to move into mobile advertising. It's in its infancy, but I think that's where the growth is going to happen. And I got my first opportunity to really get to know mobile deeper for a startup. I think the best place to learn something is at a startup because you learn the whole business. So going from sales, how do you get yourself more rounded to understand all the aspects of business? I think a startup is a great place to do so. So a large company called Cisneros was doing a startup within them, and they wanted to disrupt the digital media space. For Latinos, I was the second employee hired within this startup. And they had an idea, but they didn't have all the details. We want to go into mobile advertising for Latinos. We want to be the first company advertising to them through there. And I was hired second to do all the sales infrastructure, hire the sales teams, the offices. But being the second on board, it got me to understand finances, running a P&L, the marketing side of the product, the technical side of the product. So very quickly, I found myself in this opportunity that I was not only running sales, but really running all the other marketing and product. So it was very rewarding for me to be an experience like that, growing in a company from the bottom up. In 4 years, that company went global and it grew exponentially in the mobile space. But then I'm very ambitious and I'm like, this is great. I have grown a company from the bottom up. This is rewarding, but what's next? I want a piece of that company. I want a piece of that, how I say, success for me as well. I don't want to be an employee only. I want to be able to own it. So I left Adsmobile after 4 years of growing that company exponentially, and I launched my own business with a partner. And in a year, it was a mobile-focused business as well, but more focused in data on how to identify Hispanics beyond Spanish language, with a huge growth that is happening in the US of second generations. And these second generations are not all Spanish speakers. So it was very important for media to understand how we reach those users with data. And in a year that business became very profitable. We grew exponentially in the US. And I got acquired by a public traded company called Prisa. And they had been trying to get into the US market for over 12 years, unsuccessful. So we worked with them, and that was a new challenge in my career. I think working for a public traded company, working under a large corporation, and I remained as a CEO for 3 years, but that was not my dream. I'm like, okay, I done that. I don't want to be a corporate person. That's for some people. I'm a builder. I want to build something new. And I think there's a huge opportunity in the market. And that's what got me to launch Canela in March 2019.
Wow, so much to unpack there. But if I could go back to kind of the beginning, when you mentioned you went to the executives, with this idea to launch the digital business, and borrowing your words, at first they kind of laughed it off. They didn't take it seriously, but you never gave up. I mean, this is such an important thing, for our listeners to hear. Like, this is probably really central to your success as an entrepreneur and as a business builder. I mean, you knew you were right? I mean, like, you were not going to give that up. You knew that digital was the future. Am I right about that, Isabel?
I think you hit it in the nail. I think there's always going to be someone smarter in the room. There's always going to be, but one of the things is the tenacity, right? If you want something, you have to go, you have to fight for it. Even if you get a billion no's, if you know there's an opportunity, go for it. And I think that has been very helpful now for launching Canela and raising capital. So I don't know if you probably are aware that for venture capital, when I launched Canela, it was a bigger goal. I needed to raise capital. And only 2% of capital is given to women today, is a reality. Sad facts, but it's a reality. Very few capital goes to women. And of that 2.2%, I think it's 0.03% goes to women of color. So your likelihoods as a founder to raise capital are difficult. But if you pounder on what's difficult, you never get what you want to get done, right? So I never read those stats until recently, and I just went at it. I met with 138 VCs when I launched Canela, and they said no to me. Nobody could see my vision for this company. But I couldn't afford not to launch it. I needed to launch this business because I had left my previous company. I was one of the main breadwinners in the house. So I couldn't afford, I had a second mortgage in my house. I needed to make it work. So after 138 no's, I got my yes, and I got my funding. And so sometimes when you want something, you just have to be persistent.
Yeah, I mean, it is the perfect segue into the Canela story. And I mean, let's just emphasize that for the audience. The 138 no's. I mean, I'm guessing somewhere around that 130th no, you were feeling pretty low, right? I mean, like that had to be tough for you.
Very tough. That's why I say that's when you have to grab to your faith and say, God, what's going on? Am I going crazy here? Am I seeing something I'm not supposed to? I just trust you. I'll do my best. I won't rest until I know I did everything possible. But after 138, maybe 139, there's not no, maybe there's a message here that I have to, maybe I'm a little, how you say, I always tell God, maybe I'm daft. Maybe you've been telling me very clear that this is not the path, but you had to, if I'm a little deaf, send me the sirens, send me the helicopters, just make it so obvious so I stop, because I won't stop. So
hey man, yeah. So how did you feel when the 140th ask came along and it was finally a yes? Describe that feeling to us.
It felt unreal. It felt unreal, and I was like, are they sure they want to do this? Because 138 people have said no. Are you sure you want to invest? I know it's a great deal, but everybody doesn't think so. So of course I didn't tell that to the VC. I had to play like, this is, it's a hard, I'm glad you're getting in at this time, but I was so relieved. And the people that end up investing in my company, which is interesting, are all female VCs or minority VCs. So a group called Angeles Investors, which shows all Latino investors, and all VCs run by women. So some of the most impressive women in media are backing us, like Susan Line, who was the president of ABC for 9 years, then she became the CEO of Martha Stewart. We have Lawrence Anlisky, was the president of Telemundo. We have Julianne Zimmerman, which was the first woman that was going to go into the moon. So incredible women, but it had to be women that could believe in me. Isn't that, I mean, I think that's very eye-opening.
It is eye-opening. That's a good word for it. And let me get this correct. Your fundraising round, the Class A fundraising round, that's how you describe it, right? That was the most successful for any Hispanic-owned business in history, right?
Yeah. So after a seat that was difficult, we killed the numbers. We did incredible. The company grew exponentially. And now that we raised our Series A, we have these incredible finances, right? Nobody can see it. It's all about the vision, where you're going, and you as a founder, right? When you go into Series A with numbers and you've proven the concept, right? So we went and raised our Series A. We recently closed, and it's one of the top ever Latino funded companies in the history of the US. And we just got named in Crunchbase one of the highest races for females, regardless of race, in this year. So we're the top 7 largest race. So it's been incredible. Those $32 million are going to be a huge fuel to continue to exponentially grow the company to hopefully an IPO. Yeah.
Isabel, congratulations again. I mean, it is such an extraordinary success. I mean, you must be flying high. Credit to you and your team. I'm curious, why do you think Canela proved to be such a good bet for these VC groups to invest in?
I think the Hispanic market is always nobody sees the opportunity. I think right now there's 2 huge waves in the market that have elevated the opportunity. Streaming is people are cutting, they're not watching TV that much, they're going to streaming. And there's these streaming wars with HBO, Netflix, and all these large properties, but they forgot about the Latino community that is 18% of the US. So they are not gearing to this very hungry, tech forward audience. So we saw the value there, and we're serving them with content that is unique for them. Our business model is the correct one for the audience we're going after. We're a free platform, fully supported by advertising. So we're democratizing content for everybody, which is very important for our segment. So just, I think those things have made it grow so fast. And I have run ad sales teams for a while. So my sales side has been key for this in running teams, because we've been able to connect with some of the largest advertisers to come on board and reach this audience, from the Coca-Colas to the Nissans to the Verizons. So it's been great for the revenue. So with revenue comes larger valuations, and which is a great return for investors.
You're on talking to Isabel Rafferty Zavala on the Faith and Finance Forum podcast, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association and presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. Isabel, there's so much we want to cover with you, because you've had such a great run. There's so many things we want to dive into, but just specifically regarding marketing to the Hispanic American audience, which is very much your expertise. You know that better than anyone. What are your principles or recommendations you would make to other American corporations, firms attempting to market to that segment of the population? What should they be watching to do that more effectively?
That's a great question. First of all, don't ignore this segment. I think I'm surprised a lot of corporations, they fight over the same segments in markets. And sometimes the Latino market can be an amazing segment for them. It depends on the product, right? But it could be it's a very loyal audience. So when you win with a Latino, you win, I think, a customer for life. It's a very family-oriented segment as well. So family is key. So if they're going to this specific product, they buy the whole family. So if you win one of the Latinos, you win the whole family, which I think is very critical. And then I think if you're gonna go advertising to them, be authentic. Be authentic. There's key things that are important to understand Latinos, and when you talk to them, family, faith, very important to them, and understand them well, so your message comes out authentic. Language is important, but culture is more. So if you're going to go and reach them, first think about the culture. Is my message appealing to them based on culture? Is it relevant to them? And then language is key, but it's not as important as culture.
And when you say language, does that mean that a company or firm attempting to effectively market to the Hispanic population in the United States, does the message need to be in Spanish to do that effectively?
Depends on the segment they're going after. Yes, I will always recommend, if possible, to have assets in Spanish. But it depends on the demographic. If you're going after a first generation Latino or a little bit older demo, yes, Spanish is very crucial. Where you gear into a younger demographic, Spanish is great. It's a plus. But if you don't, all those younger demographics, second generations, are bilingual, bicultural. So you can speak to them in English, just make sure that they know you're speaking to them, to their culture. So refer family, refer the things that are important for them.
And Isabel, you touched upon this, very clearly, but as important as language is, culture is really the focus, right? So I think when I hear you talk about culture, I think, drawing back to some of your other comments, faith and family are components of that. What else does culture mean in effective marketing to the Hispanic American community?
The passion points, we call them. So understanding what gives them is passion for Latinos. So sports, for example, we're very passionate about our soccer. So soccer is key. Food, we're very passionate about our foods, and it's understanding the nuances between countries, right? Mexicans love their enchiladas. And so every country has their dishes, but food is a big passion. Sports is a big passion, particular soccer. We watch all sports, but soccer, we're very big fanatics of sport. Music, Latin music, and Latin music is another conversation, but Latin music goes beyond the Hispanic community, but very passionate about dancing, music, partying, deep connections with family, friends. So I think it's just how you create that message that comes across, how you put those elements that appear authentic, and it's working with companies. There's companies out there can help you. In Canela, we have for example, we have a team of 50 creators that work with brands. And we have people from Argentina, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Colombia. So we also have the diversity within the staff to make sure we have an authentic message depending who the advertising is looking to reach.
And is that type of segmenting critical? I mean, because you're right, you throw around the term marketing to Hispanics or marketing to Latin Americans. I mean, that's a little bit off, right? Because I mean, there's all these segments and different subcategories within the demographic that all have their own unique dynamics at play, right? I mean, that's a key part of this, isn't it?
It is, but sometimes depends the product, depends the message. Sometimes you don't have to complicate yourself that much and find what are the roots they have in common and utilize those things that unite them across Latin America to find a message that will be appealing and welcome between all those subgroups.
And including amongst that is faith, family, soccer or football, food, having fun with friends and family. These are common throughout the nationalities, right?
Yes, they really are. 76% of the U.S. Latino community here in the U.S. is Christian.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. Yeah, this is great. And it's growing, right? I mean, that population continues to be the fastest growing of all the different population segments in America, right?
Yeah, 50% of the growth of the U.S. is dependent on the U.S. Latino today.
So you're smart if you market to this group. I mean, both near term and long term. I mean, this is the future.
It makes business sense. It's not charity. That's what I like to tell people.
No way. Yeah.
You're gonna make so much money if you do it right, accurately. You have a client for life, and yeah, it makes business sense. If you want your company to grow, you have to go where the growth is, and that's this segment.
Amen. Isabel, you spoke with such great passion earlier about the women investors, especially, that got behind you and believed in you. I could tell that really affected you in a big way. Do you intend to pay that forward, or are you looking for the next generation of rising female entrepreneurs to support their dreams?
Absolutely. I think it's supporting women, and I think it's not, it doesn't have to be found. Yes, if there's founders, always happy to help them in how to improve their deck for pitching for VCs, tips, even connecting them with some of my investors. But it's within your organization, how you empower women within your organizations to speak out, to take opportunities of leadership, identifying, giving opportunities to women in key categories that are hard to find. For example, finance is one of them. Our CFO, when we posted our job for our CFO, we got over 320 applicants. Of these 320 applicants, only 6 females in those CFO applications. So and of course I said, let's give the opportunities to women. Let's first interview and see if there's a qualified woman, because I was just shocked that there were so few women applying to C-level positions. So
yeah, indeed. So Isabel, going back to an earlier point in your career, when you were 21 and you're building up the sales team, managing people, and you've managed people the whole time, right? I mean, from that job all the way through being a CEO and now a founder and CEO, you've always led people. That's been a big part of your professional profile. What are your principles when it comes to leading and managing others? What type of manager are you?
I think my management style got really shaped by the first years of management because how I started managing, I was maybe 21, 22, and I was managing people that were maybe 40s and in their 50s. So it was very important to understand what were my strengths and where was my weakness, and understand people, where they're coming from. It was not easy for them to say, this is a girl that is the age of my kids going to tell me what to do, right? So that was another, I had to be very smart on how to approach those relationships. And so I decided to become the best server for them, the best helper, and help them in the area that was digital, that was new to them. So instead of coming in as, hey, I'm the big boss and you do as I do, I realized I had more experience than me in many areas than I didn't. I understood digital, but they had been at the game longer than I. So I had to respect that and give them their place and come onto them as, how can I help you do your job? I'm here to serve you. You tell me what you need from me, and I'm going to serve you to ensure that you're successful. Because my goal, so it was a very human way. I'm here, I want to help them. And I think that was key because that really has shaped the way that I lead and how I attract talent. Is people want to work with someone that understands them, that is human. And it's kind of the Christian side of us. And I think that's how Jesus came. You come to serve. So when I go, I'm there to serve them. I'm there to help them. And not forget, because it gets hard sometimes to forget of being kind, being nice, being there when they're having hard troubles, and but also being able to put your foot down when there's things that are not correct. But you have earned at that point their trust. So I think it's very key to own their trust, serve them, and then when you have to point something out to them, they know where they're coming from. That is not on a desire to ridicule them or criticize them, but it's there because you want them to improve and get better. So
That's pretty amazing that understood that, or at least saw that the value in that at such a young age. I mean, that must have been so hard to be 21, managing people twice your age, to quickly earn their respect and be able to guide them and lead them the way you obviously successfully did. But it sounds like your secret was, you're right, it is a Christian principle, to lead as a servant leader, right? To gain the trust and the respect of the people on your team by serving them in a Christian way. It sounds like that's just naturally who you are, Isabel. Am I right?
yes, I try. I'm not gonna say it's always easy, and sometimes like you have a hard day and you have to say, okay, we just restart the next day and try again hard, because there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and you just have to be careful that does not affect the way you lead and treat people within your organization. And it's not always perfect, but we try hard.
Yeah, amen. So, Isabel, there's so many changes going on in the workplace environment, and Canela Media and the other, initiatives you're involved in. You have a lot of employees in a lot of different places. Talk to us about some of the trends that are going on in the office right now. Just remote work, hybrid work. What's your approach to the way you handle those dynamics, and where do you see it going in the future? Are you do you like people to be in the office? Do you like people to be working from home, hybrid? What's your approach to these kind of cutting edge trends in American work?
We got started in a different situation than most companies. Most companies come from being in the office, going to remote, trying to figure out a hybrid, or we started all remote. As Canela really flourished in the middle of pandemic, our main product launched in May, a month when we all shut down, May 2020. And that's when we started hiring people as crazy, and everybody was remote. Most of our team, we didn't never met them in person until recently. Everything had been through computers, and it was very global. We had teams in Argentina, in Brazil, Mexico. So everything has been remote, and it has to be built in a system of trust. If you don't trust the people that work for you, they're not the right people working for you, because you're not cannot have them checking what they do. You have to hire professional people that are able to run with it. They're entrepreneurs themselves. So a lot is the personality of who we hire is not the right for all the corporations, but for us, as we're a hyper growth startup, we need people to take ownership. They're trustworthy. They're gonna work and do their job. And recently we have added the element of going into the office for some of the teams. So we meet twice a week into the office, because there is, I think, a lot of value in being in office idea, especially for innovation. I feel that it's hard to set up a meeting in your Zoom and say, we're going to innovate. It just doesn't happen. Those
Great.
things happen sometimes grabbing a coffee in the kitchen or just discussing an opportunity. And so I think you have to be interacting with people where innovation really happens, because nobody's going to put into their calendar, let's meet at 15 minutes and discuss innovation. So yes,
No.
I think it's a hybrid model for us, but hybrid is also key for women in the workforce, I think, and then also men, to be able to have a more balance with family and work. So I like the hybrid model a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, and I think that when you agree that the rising generation and perhaps the generation beyond that, they're gonna want it all, right? I mean, like we talked about earlier, they're gonna want to be there for their children. They're gonna want to be able there to take care of their responsibilities as a mother or a father, but they also want to do great work and they want to be a part of some great professional enterprise. It sounds like at Canela, you get that and you embrace that.
Yes, it all depends the person you hire. We also seen some people do not want to work in the interview process, interviewing a lot. They're like, yeah, I want to work remote, but I want to work only a few hours. We're like, well, you know what? It is work. Like there is a balance, right? So I think you're gonna see a little bit of everything, but if you get the right people, the hybrid can work very well for a corporation.
You know, Isabel, you've hired dozens, if not hundreds, of people throughout your career. And as a CEO, that's one of the big skills, right? To identify talent, identify integrity and character, the other characteristics of a top performing employee. When you go into a job search, when you post a position, when you evaluate a hire you're going to make, talk to us about some of the process that you go through to make sure that the person you're bringing on is likely to be a great fit and a superstar at your company.
In particular, I think this is key for leadership roles. We're very particular who we bring to leadership roles, because there's a culture that we have created, and they're the ones that are going to be able to pass on our culture to their teams. So when possible, and we've done this multiple times, we bring those leaders as contractors or in a lower position before we get them into a C-suite position or SVP position, because it goes back to that culture of serving. It's important that the leaders that we bring are kind. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Yes, of course, we want the smartest people, but you can have the smartest people that are kind. So I think one of the key elements that we look for in the interview process is that kindness, that willing to let others shine within their team. And you can, and it's amazing how you can see that very quickly in a person, from how they lead their meetings, how they speak about their teammates, how they communicate with others. That kindness is very easy to pinpoint. So that's one of the key things that we look for our leaders, because the rest you're going to see in a resume. If you have 20 years acquiring content, I know you know how to acquire content. Like I can dive into exams and ask you about all, but you probably, I mean, you have worked for large companies that acquire content, you know what you're doing there. But what is going to be key is how you lead those teams. So that kindness element is key. For example, right now we have a person that we're considering for this position, but I said I didn't have that job open right now, that he had to come in as a contractor for 3 months, because I want to make sure that he's the person that's going to continue that culture onto their team before I fully bring him on board.
No, that's so good, and you're right. It's all about the culture, and you've worked too hard and fought so hard to create this culture at Canela. It's really sacred, and you need to bring in people that are going to celebrate and reinforce that. It's interesting. Isabel. I've tracked the growth of Canela over the past few years, and it's not even a few. It's like 2.5 years that you've gone from this literal startup. Day one, you're coming up on your 3-year anniversary. You've already accomplished so much. Talk to us right now about your strategy with Canela, the various products you're offering, the various brands that you've launched. Where is Canela today in terms of its offering? What should our audience know about your company and what it does?
Today we have two main platforms under the Canela umbrella. One of them is Canela TV, which is our first OTT streaming app. So similar to how you watch Netflix or Hulu, we're a free streaming app that you can download on your phone, your TV to watch movies, entertainment. We have our own newscast as well, so you can watch daily news in our app. So it's high quality, long form video for free for the users, fully funded by advertising. And that was our first platform, is our main platform, and is in the US, Mexico, and Colombia today. We have our second platform that we launched a little less than a year ago. It's called Canela Music, and it's another video-based platform, but all for Latin music, where you can watch the best music videos. You can watch, for example, we have exclusive talk shows. One of them is Nicky Jam. Nicky Jam is one of the biggest artist right now for Latin music, and he hosts his talk show within Canela. We're doing a lot of original programming, from cooking shows with celebrities to Desde la Raíz, is they find the charity side, the charitable side of celebrities as well, and following their footsteps. And now we're going to be launching in August Canela Kids. Canela Kids is one that I'm personally very excited about. It's a platform of all kids programming, entertainment, all in Spanish. And the goal of the platform is you can download the app in your phone or in your TV, helping Latina moms to make sure their kids retain the language. So learn Spanish, because as a mom of four, it's very hard for my kids to speak Spanish, because they go to school in English, just speaking English with their dad. So it's going to be the best helper for moms. If my kids want to watch TV, they have to see Canela Kids, all in Spanish. And it's all educational programming, safe, also a very deep curation. We're not letting content that is that I don't want my kids to watch. So that's kind of the way. If my kids, I will not let my kids watch, I'm not going to put it in the platform. So very safe content. That is where Canela is today, where our goal is those are three main pillars of products. We're in US, Mexico, and Colombia. We're looking to expand into all Latin America this year, ending in Brazil. But at the same time as we expand those products, continue the innovation. So we're launching our innovation lab out of San Francisco, led by a very amazing woman called Champa Berneji, who used to be the Chief Product Officer of Viacom. She joins us to run our innovation lab, and we're going to bring 25 engineers. And our goal is to see where is the future of media going, and make sure we're the first at it, Web3, NFTs. So Hispanic audiences are going to be the first ones to, because they're very tech savvy, experience the next phase of media. And then if a product explodes there, then expand it to also other segments. So innovation is going to be the key differentiation in the media space, always looking what's next. So I'm very excited to open the innovation labs in San Francisco. And so I think that's the future too.
No, that's incredible. And Isabel, I want to emphasize this to the audience. It sounds like you've kind of made a decision in terms of content to allow only family-friendly content that you'd be comfortable sharing with your children or a loved one. Do I have that right? Is that another brand differentiator for Canela, that it's wholesome, good content that's family-friendly?
For Canela Kids, yes.
Okay, cool. That's great. That's good to know. No, I love that. So, as a pretty normal, average consumer of American media, I should see Canela in the same way I do like Hulu or YouTube TV or some of these other video streaming services that are available to me, right?
We hope you do. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I mean, we're not the size of Hulu, but we
Okay.
will be. We're getting
Okay.
there. But yes, we're growing really fast, and in the Latino, we're making our name. So yes, I think we'll get to be to the Hulu's numbers in a few years.
Talk to me about the news coverage. I mean, that's such a popular offering of like mainstream, cable TV. Like the big news channels are widely watched. It's the most popular product. Is that an important offering for Canela? I mean, do you recognize that need for for news and commentary and the offerings of like your Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. Is Canela's product comparable to those in terms of providing both news and commentary? Or just talk to me a little bit about that.
No, I think that's a great point. What I realized when we opened Canela TV, which was in the middle of the pandemic, if Latinos were cutting the cord, right? They were not getting access to Univision, Telemundo news at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The only source of news in the US for them was Facebook and social media and fake news. Like they were not getting quality news or the important information and it was very concerning for me. I'm like, there is a huge void here because a lot of our audience are not subscribing to cable anymore and they're not getting reliable news. So I saw a huge opportunity to let's come and bring a newscast, high quality, that says the truth, that tells the facts, right? That is, we ran Canela News and it's a little bit different in its live every day, 6 and 9 o'clock p.m. newscast. It's a little shorter because it's meant for streamers. It's 30 minutes. It goes down to the point. Here are the news of the day. Here's what you need to know. This is key for the US Latinos in the US, not a global news. And then it has a sports segment as well. We cover key sporting events. And then on Fridays, we have a segment in particular called Happy News or Buenas Noticias, which is uplifting our community because we hear so many sad news through the week. So we want to make sure people go into the week uplifted and happy. But it's a fantastic news. I mean, I think our team does a fantastic job to get to the point with the facts. And of course, we cover things that are important too. So the Virgin of Guadalupe, we're going to have a coverage of that because that's important. The March of Lives is important for us. So there is key things that I think some other media outlets maybe are not highlighting, but are important. And we make sure those are covered.
That's great. And what about, I mean, you mentioned, a couple of times the enthusiasm around sports, especially soccer. Will there be a Canela like offering that's comparable to like ESPN or Fox Sports Network or something like that?
We're getting there.
Great.
We do have a live stream exclusively with, for example, El Salvador Soccer League.
Wow.
So Salvadorians know that if they want to watch their favorite soccer teams, they come to Canela. It's the only platform that offers that live streaming, multiple games, mostly on the weekend. So Salvadorians love us. We're launching Dominican baseball, which is huge because we know a lot of the biggest players of the US and they go to Dominican Republic to play baseball in the off season. So gets huge names. So if you want to watch baseball, Canela is a place for it as well. And then we work with a lot of other franchises and content. So we have a partnership with Combate America, which is MMA fighting, very high for Latinos. We work also with Bean Sports, which has a lot of the key soccer games for Latinos. And we have a partnership with Real Madrid as well. So behind the scenes of the Real Madrid and some of the key games. So,
one of the beautiful things about Canela is that it is all advertising driven. You know what I mean? There's no subscription or anything like that. It's very democratic, as you indicated earlier. So what's the profile of an advertiser for Canela? I mean, what type of company or firm would enjoy high ROI from getting involved with Canela and advertising on your channel?
I think anyone could. Right now, we're very focused in Fortune 500. So we work with the McDonald's, the Pepsis, the Nissans, the Toyotas, T-Mobile. So from over QSR, tech, every single segment, I think. The Latino community is attractive for every large corporation, I think. So there's opportunities for all.
Yeah, that's quite a list already that are in the mix, and I'm sure it's growing all the time. Hey, correct me if I got this wrong, but did you say that with your coverage of celebrities, you try to focus especially on their charitable work? Was that did I catch that right, or?
But yeah, I mean, it kind of a lot of our lens is the things, the areas that we're interested. So one of them is we do have an originalized space on the charitable work of celebrities.
Cool.
We want to see the other side of them because we think it's uplifting. People have to see how they're involved in their communities. So there is an original show there, Desde la Raíz is called, that is going to explore the charitable works of those celebrities into their communities.
How fascinating. I mean, like, in the mainstream culture and the mainstream media that we all digest, I mean, like, there's really nothing like that. It always focuses on, I guess, like, who they're dating, or like, what kind of car they're driving, or, whatever like scandal is surrounding them. You know what I mean? You're instead, highlighting and appropriately recognizing the good works they do. I think that's nice. I wish there was more of that.
There should be more of that, because I think that's what we need to be admiring as a as yeah, as people. Why are we admiring how much they spend in a car, right? Let's admire things that matter. So yeah, I'm very excited about that series. I think it's gonna be fantastic. Another interesting thing is right now for Easter, if you go to Canela, we have amazing movies, religious movies as well. Again, and we have from the Hollywood movies, you see everywhere, not everything is, that's the thing, we're attracting masses. So it's large libraries, not all our, I could say all our content is beautiful and appropriate. No, however, we do draw the lines, but one of them is right now Easter coming. You come to Canela, the first thing you're gonna see is Catholic movies. So we have our most watched movie right now on the platform is Jesus of Nazareth.
Wow.
So there
and
is
that's in Spanish, right?
in Spanish.
Because everything's
Yes.
yeah, important to emphasize. But no, that's cool. I mean, so are any of these original productions, or is it more just kind of the classics from Christian and Catholic movies?
All these are classics right
Okay.
now. We're gearing more into originals with the music. We're doing originals as well with the kids programming, but mostly the movies are Hollywood movies or very big releases in Latam. So they're mostly all in Spanish, but they're incredible religious movies in the platform too.
And you're tracking viewership and all this. I mean, the audience is digesting it, right? I mean, they want to watch Jesus of Nazareth around Holy Week, it sounds like, right?
76% of Latinos in the US are Christian.
It's awesome. Oh my gosh, so cool. Well, we're wrapping up our time here, Isabel. I know how busy you are, so I do want to honor that. But before we go, let me just ask, you just had this amazing run, and you're really just getting started. I mean, you have decades ahead, and the sky's the limit for you. I mean, I can't wait to follow the rest of your career. But what advice would you give to, somebody who was, I don't know, 20 years back, right? I mean, like, kind of like you were describing in that first sales job where you had to kind of step into a role and guide people that were, further along than you, more experienced than you. What advice or what encouragement would you pass along to, I don't know, the rising generation that want what you have to achieve great success professionally, have a family, have faith, you know what I mean? Just what would you say to them to encourage them today?
Never give up. I think that's important. Have very clear what your goals are and work for them, right? Success does not come easy. Everybody sees just the top of success, but there's a lot of hard work, and you have to be willing to work harder than anyone. In particular, as a woman, I say you cannot afford to be okay at what you do. If you're going to rise, you have to be the best, and you're willing to work harder than anyone else. So I think at different stages of your career, there's key things that you need to accomplish. When you're out of college, one of them is be the hardest worker, be the most knowledgeable, hardest worker, because that's your key that you have at that stage of your life. You have that energy. So you really have to use that energy to help you succeed. So work harder than anyone and learn more, as much as you can, from your coworkers, from your bosses. Find just be hunger for learning in that stage. And then next stage of your career, yeah, maybe it's not that much of the energy. You're still going to continue to have energy, but surround yourself with smart people. Always be willing to hire people smarter than you and learn from them. Never feel bad about, I think keep ego on the side is a key thing. Ego just gets in the way of things. So be okay and be humble if you don't know anything, and just find people that are kind as well, willing to teach you. And yeah, I think it's just surround yourself with amazing people around you that believe what you believe and that will empower you to be successful.
Wow, so good. So Isabel, those in our audience that want to learn more about you, more about Canela, where should they go?
Well, they can visit canelamedia.com to learn more about the company. But more than anything, they can download our app and start streaming. And you can go to your Roku or to your any computer, your phone, and just search canela.tv, and you will see our app. Download it and let us know what you think.
Well, I want to check out this musician you mentioned. What is it, Nico or
Nicky Jam?
Nicky Jam. I'm going to be playing that this weekend, so that's great. All right, we've been talking to Isabel Rafferty Zavala on the Faith and Finance Forum podcast, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association. presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We've been talking about faith, entrepreneurship, $32 million in funding, serving people really well, leading people really well, balancing family and success, all kinds of great topics with our friend Isabel today. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Faith and Finance Forum podcast. Have a great Holy Week and a happy Easter. God bless.